About a third.
Viera.
Present.
Vice Chairman Christ.
Present.
Chairman Augusta is absent.
Last month we did a, we were approached.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I'm sorry. You might want to take a motion to excuse the chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion to excuse the chairman?
I'll move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Last month, the Criminal Justice Commission decided to make a presentation to the officers because we're having such good work done by the officers that we decided to make a presentation for what they called the Hook of the Month. This presentation is done by the Sheriff's Department. It's voted on by the captain in his command. So at this time, I'd like to make a presentation to Officer Scott. Would he join me up front, please? On April 14th, Deputy Christian Scott received information that there was a wanted individual from the state of Massachusetts in the area of 32nd Street West in the city of Lancaster. The fugitive was wanted for transportation of narcotics and possessions of a firearm. With this information, Deputy Scott began making several patrol checks in the area. His persistent and proactive police work paid off when he observed the suspect drive off in a vehicle. In the area around 32nd Street and K4, he recognized the suspect. He immediately conducted a traffic stop and he detained him. Upon questioning, the suspect provided Deputy Scott with a false name and claimed to have no identification. Deputy Scott searched the suspect and found several credit cards, several false Social Security cards, and a California identification cards, which did not belong to the suspect and were later discovered to be stolen. With the strong knowledge of search and seizure laws, Deputy Scott used good investigation skills and searched the suspect's vehicle. Inside, he found counterfeit California identification cards and the suspect's picture on it. He also searched the backpack belonging to the suspect and found several stolen men's watches, camera equipment, miscellaneous jewelry, and a lock-picking device inside. Based upon the evidence found on the suspect's person inside his vehicle and in his backpack, Deputy Scott arrested the suspect for receiving stolen property, possession of false identification cards, and possession of a burglary tool, possession of stolen ID cards, and a fugitive from Massachusetts. And we'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to just add that Deputy Scott and his work is an example of the type of hard-working, loyal, intelligent deputy sheriff out there right now that is key to our efforts to lowering that Part 1 crime rate. He's among, I think, an entire group of deputies working patrol right now that have just absolutely been terrific in what they've done out there to reduce crime and I think encourage confidence from our community out there. So thank you, Deputy Scott. Thank you very much.
And we're going to change a few things around on the new business and the consent calendar, but we're going to move the new business, the Palmdale High School Students Against Destructive Decisions, down to after new business 4. So we're going to start with the consent calendar, which is approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We want to do the public business from the floor.
We have no public business from the floor.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to inquire if the audio-visual is ready to go, maybe we can go straight to the Palmdale High School when you get to new business. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Are we ready to go?
They didn't tell us that we were ready.
Okay, then we will,
It's the back that are dealing with
okay, thank you.
You believe it's ready to go? Okay, she'll check and we'll take the other ones.
Thank you.
While we're waiting.
At this time, we're going to go to new business number 2, crime statistics. Jim?
The weeks that we'll be talking about today will be weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 since our last meeting and presentation of information to the committee. What we see up here right now are the summary breakdowns of, and again, to talk about these data, it's important for the commission to understand that these are events. They are not crime counts as would be included in the Uniform Crime Report. These are, it's important to understand that you could have multiple incidents of Part 1 crimes in a single event. What we did was we selected in the hierarchy of reporting crime the highest event, and that's where we placed it in our count. The whole idea is to be able to understand where things are at so that you can deploy your resources appropriately. So what we can see up here are the crime counts for those weeks, for violent crime, for property crime. One of the counts that we're working towards, but we're not there yet, is actually being able to match the arrest as well. And we're well on the road to that, but we're not quite there yet. And then at the bottom there, you see the unique, the number of unique reports that were taken in the city of Lancaster. Now, what you need to also understand with regard to unique reports is these are the report counts that comes out of their report system. There could be supplemental reports for each one of these, so there may actually be more physical reports than what you see there. These are just unique report numbers. The next thing that you see up here are the most active reporting districts. Now, one of the maps that I put in front of you right now is the reporting districts. You can see one of the things that I would encourage you to do with this. On your first meeting date, I gave you a notebook of information. I would encourage you to punch this information because we'll be referring to this with each report, and to take that information so that you can look at this and say, when you see that reporting district 1137 seems to be the most accurate, you can take a look at that and kind of place it on the map for yourself. These are the three most active reporting districts in week 19, which was last week. The part or 1137 and 1135 tied with 14 Part 1 crimes. 1127 came in right behind it. The previous week, week 18, 1127 led the pack with 17, followed by 1137 and 1126. Now, with the other information that we share, we have our 52-week comparison graph, which we talked about last week, where we take a look at the baseline and the baseline and what our trends are doing, you can see with regard to crimes that we have focused on recently, robbery, while it's trending up, the last couple of weeks have been down in that category. With regard to aggravated assault, we are trying to see the baseline on there. We are trending down in aggravated assault. When we take a look at burglary, we're just about we're trending down a little bit, but we're just about dead even in that. Larceny is where we're showing the big progress right now. When you take a look at the baseline for robbery, we're well below the baseline and we're trending down. For auto theft, we're seeing a slight uptick in the trend. However, we're still well below the baseline, and particularly last week, we were pretty fortunate in that area. And of course, arson is a fairly low frequency crime for us. It's like murder and rape. We have a very low frequency on the chart over a 52-week period. If you take a look at the second sheet that I gave you that says reporting or LASD reporting districts and U.S. Census block group overlay, one of the things that I did was I took the reporting districts for the Sheriff's Department follow fairly closely the census tracts for the U.S. Census. So one of the things that I did was I went down to the block level and I overlaid our block level information into the reporting districts, and it makes for kind of a nice map, especially when you're trying to drill down to figure out exactly what neighborhoods are problematic. Now, you also should understand that we use this information not only for the Sheriff's Department, but we also use it internally within the city to take a look at where there are certain problems and where things where there are issues. So if you take a look at the color maps that I gave you, you can see week 18 and week 19 laid out there. On the right side, in the lower right-hand corner, you can see on the legend where you've got robbery, assault, domestic violence, burglary, residence burglary, other structure, larceny, and vehicle theft. And you can see those plotted on the map. One of the other things that you can see there in the lower left-hand corner is the density by block group, not just reporting district, but by block group within that reporting district. And that gives us a little clearer picture, particularly as we start to see these block groups pop up, these relatively small block groups. We can not only deploy the sheriff's resources then, but we can also deploy the city's resources to begin to work on some of the causative factors that are involved in this. And you can see, of course, this is one reason why I'm a little bit opposed to static maps, and we make things available for you on the city intranet, is static maps make it very difficult to zoom in and be able to see at the street level where things are at and those kinds of things. But I did want to give you kind of an idea of where we're at, where we're going with the way that we're looking at some of the information that we're getting right now. And that's about it for my report. Questions?
Jim, just real quickly, this is great information that gives you a great target, and you kind of answered the question, but having this, what do we do? What are we using it, or are we then working with the Sheriff's Department to then send resources in, or as a result of this information, or what are we doing with it?
Well, we have a management meeting every week, or the city manager does, and at the beginning of the management meeting, we present the information not only to the Sheriff's Department, but also to the department heads. And they're able to see it on the, in addition to that, we have on the city network, we have a folder set up on the SharePoint network, just like for the Criminal Justice Commission. We also have a folder set up for them that they can use within their particular areas the way that they see fit, and they can actually take a look at the information down to the street level as well.
Just for the commissioner's information, the mayor and Jim and Mark and myself, we recently had a meeting, and Jason, regarding this, and the intent and what's happening is that this information is being given to the sheriff's department, and actually we're trying to push it into greater use. And I know Axel is right on top of this, and it's going to be really useful information, as you can see, for us to keep track of what's going on in our city. So we're making some great progress, and thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
Our focus, as Rob said, will be over the next couple of months to work with the Sheriff's Department to push this and provide this and partner with them in any way we can to, they're the experts, to get it as much and as frequently and where they need it.
And it appears that there's a baseline from which you're going to work from to see what is occurring and what changes it's making and how to attribute it to that, it appears.
The baseline, I calculated going back to 1997, and what we do is the baseline is set up to try to figure out what our weekly rate is, and then the whole idea is for us to stay below that baseline every week if we can, and ultimately that brings your crime rate down.
Thank you.
Do you have anything on here that shows the weather?
Shows the weather? No. Right now, we do have weather data available to us, but essentially what we'll be using that for is we have an analytical tool from SPSS called Model, or formerly called Clementine. And when we get our data finally arranged the way that we need it to be arranged, we will run the weather data along with the crime data and other types of data that we collect. We have a variety of data that's available to us from several vendors, and they will actually run all of that. And what we'll be looking for then will be basically predictors of crime, and that's where we get into what the city manager talked about at the last meeting of eventually being able to get into a little bit of predictive analytics.
When you talk about being able to predict it, are you talking about like school vacations, the weather?
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get until you run the data. One of the things, Alexandria, Virginia did this, and Alexandria found that the weather was a strong predictor for them. It's kind of it's a nice assumption and a nice hypothesis to say the weather will be a predictor for us, but we don't really know that until we run the data. And when we put a lot of other data in with it, like the school calendar and those kinds of things, then we may be able to get some things that say, maybe, and the whole idea is when we talk about predictive analytics, we're not talking about being able to say there's going to be a robbery on a certain street corner at a certain time, but being able to take information like this block group level information, we can say there's a higher probability for certain types of crimes in this block group in the upcoming time period of X as opposed to other areas. And if we let the Sheriff's Department know that, they can have their resources kind of deployed. Alexandria managed to pull themselves out of the top 3 or 4 in robbery and violent crime in the UCR and get themselves down into what they consider to be a relatively safe category. So we're trying to replicate that a little bit.
And when Jim says eventually, we're talking a few months, not years. I mean, that's the second component that we're looking at, the predictive component.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your report. I understand that everything's ready for the Palmdale High School students to go ahead with their presentation. So we can go back to new business 1.
Good morning. My name is Angela Hefter, and I'm an instructor for the Health Careers Academy at Palmdale High School. I'm also the Health Careers Academy coordinator, and I'm the lead HOSA advisor. We have brought to you today 3 students that competed at our state conference, our HOSA state conference. HOSA stands for Health Occupational Students of America. These students competed at the state level. They were able to compete against several other teams of community awareness, and they brought home the gold to our chapter, and they'll be representing the state of California at the national conference, which is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. So they have put together a presentation that they're going to be presenting on, and it's SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, and we're hoping in the future to do more things with this in the future. So I'm going to turn that over to them once they make sure everything is up and going. We had to make a little transition with our laptops. We have some, they have some media feed, and sometimes it's not compatible on all their laptops, even if you put it on a flash drive. So we appreciate the adjustment in the schedule for us, and I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you.
I love technology. They know it much better than I do.
Good morning. I'm Catherine Chan.
I'm Allison Kosh.
I'm Eric Lenorgan.
And we are Students Against Destructive Decisions. SAD is an organization that works to deliver educational and prevention messages to people of all ages about different types of impairment. We created our own unique community awareness project to inform our community about the dangers of driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs and cell phone distractions. Our goal was to reach out to our peers before they made poor decisions and to decrease the number of impaired-related collisions amongst teenagers.
So here's some of the facts that we uncovered in researching for this project. Drug driving doesn't usually get as much attention as drunk driving, but according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 13% of high school seniors reported driving high on marijuana, which is not at all far off from the 14% who reported driving drunk.
Driver inattention is the leading cause of car collisions. The most prominent distraction a driver may face is their cell phone. A conversation held by the driver will increase their likelihood of an accident by 1.3 times. Dialing or texting on the phone will increase this chance by nearly 3 times.
Motor vehicle crashes remain the #1 cause of death to people ages 15 to 20, and 28% of these youths involved in accidents have been intoxicated. Teenagers tend to have an attitude of invincibility to many dangers, such as impaired driving. We see people texting and talking on the phone every day and hear of accidents caused by driving impaired on the news nationwide. We wanted to reach out to our peers and spread the importance of these issues before prom and graduation came up. Unfortunately, we have real examples of what a terrible impact these kinds of decisions can have on people's lives.
On September 12, 2008, Jacob Hefter's life was taken in the Chatsworth Metrolink crash. Jacob was an outstanding HOSA member and presented the Every 15 Minutes project last year against drunk driving.
Johanny Lobos was a member of our Health Cares Academy and HOSA chapter. She was an outstanding volunteer, but most of all, she was my good friend. On September 23, 2008, she was just using the crosswalk when a drunk driver struck and killed her. That driver's irresponsible decision took my friend's life, and we were determined to try our best to ensure that no one we had the power to reach would make the same kind of bad decision that took our friends' lives.
This project required a lot of organization and planning. The first step was to obtain a sponsorship, which we did from the RX Paris law firm. Next, we needed to gather a wide range of materials. When we finally did obtain everything necessary to prove our point, we went through a lot of experimentation, trial and error to make sure our activity would go just right. We then created surveys with meaningful questions, distributed them, and created a high-impact PowerPoint presentation.
Long before our assembly, we began researching and drafting a survey to gauge our peers' choices and knowledge of driving decisions. Then, 2 days prior to our event, with the help of our HOSA chapter, we distributed and collected the survey to use in our presentation.
On January 30th, 2009, we presented our SAD project to 450 of our fellow students from freshmen to seniors. Thanks to our Paris law firm, through our educational pamphlets, awarding of T-shirts for correct answers to questions, and memento keychains, we were successful in promoting our HOSA chapter. On the back of our pamphlet, there's a pledge with which students could promise to themselves to avoid destructive decisions, which to our surprise, students committed to, signed, and returned to us without us asking of it.
During our assembly, we utilized the PowerPoint we created to not just say, oh, this is bad, don't do it, but to really educate our audience on the physiological effects of intoxicants and phone distraction. During the alcohol and drunk driving segment of our presentation, we showed the Every 15 Minutes video, which was produced by Jacob Hefter, which helped to drive home our point not only by its own sobering content, but by the fact that we could point out how its creator had his life snuffed out by destructive decisions.
Our hands-on activity demonstration consisted of volunteers from the audience to ride tricycles and ride on a simple course. Some wore impairment goggles, some texted on their cell phones, and some were unimpaired. With our demonstration, we were able to show that the slight loss of motor skills lost by the impairment goggles and cell phone distractions caused our volunteers to veer out of their lanes, ignore signals, and to have collisions with other tricycles and pedestrians. Through this demonstration, we were able to show the audience the bigger picture, that if the tricycles were too difficult to control while being impaired or distracted, getting behind the wheel of a 2-ton motor vehicle under such conditions was out of the question.
We had 3 guest speakers, Mike Viscone and Doug Sweeney, who are former California Highway Patrol officers. They shared their experience of tragedies concerning impaired driving. Our 3rd guest speaker, Dr. Hadavudi, an EMS doctor, spoke about the success you could lead in life when you do not make destructive decisions.
We arranged media coverage of our event with our local newspaper and local television news. And now we'd like to show you our television news coverage.
Today, a group of Palmdale High students, with the help of their teacher, took a stand against destructive behavior, and 450 of their peers listened. SoCal News reports.
It's very difficult because it's been just a short time that our son has passed away, and the feeling of this is very powerful.
Angela Hefter and her husband looked on through tears at some of the 12th graders Mrs. Hefter teaches. These seniors warned fellow students about destructive decisions.
It only takes, a split second for you to make a bad decision, whether it's texting and driving or, picking up your phone while you're driving or drinking and getting in the car impaired, and that could ruin somebody's life.
The Hefters know this lesson all too well. Their teenage son Jacob was one of 25 people killed in a Chatsworth Metrolink crash September 12, 2008. The engineer was reportedly text messaging when he ran a red light.
The decision of that engineer took Jacob's life.
Jacob went to school with these teens and was in the same healthcare academy program.
That affected me personally, and I think it affected everyone in the academy.
Along with another student, Johanny Lobos, who was killed only a few weeks after Jacob.
All Johanny was doing was using the crosswalk, and somebody hit her and drove off who was drunk.
Now 8 seniors are using these tragedies to make a point.
Think about the consequences before you do something like that.
Through speeches and exercises, students attending the assembly walked and rode around on tricycles with impairment goggles to demonstrate the dangers of drunk driving. And even though it is difficult and personal, the Hefters say they don't mind being an advocate for this cause.
If we can do one thing to save somebody's life, then that's what our goal is.
Jacob Hefter was an organizer of the Every 15 Minutes demonstration against drunk driving when he was at Palmdale High. Students and Hefter's family say they consider today's program part of his legacy.
Some definite cons we faced while we organized this event was that it was still a sensitive matter to address. We had major technical issues with different Microsoft versions and formatting the video interview to get it to work correctly on PowerPoint. We also had to deal with few teens who felt they were virtually invincible and had really stubborn attitudes towards the subject. We had one SAD coordinator who could not attend the HOSA conference, and we also had to deal with the pressure of being seniors with our futures in mind.
We really felt our project succeeded in bringing the community together to make a positive impact. Because of the events we described before, we had tremendous support from our Health Careers Academy and HOSA chapter. They really helped us draw some positive impact from terrible tragedy and to carry on our friends' legacy of community inspiration and education. We are in the process of producing a video from our presentation, which we will distribute throughout the wider community to spread our message of responsibility. We were able to produce a creative and original presentation that we informed our audience and was a learning experience for us as well. One time during the presentation that we knew we had changed perspectives was during the open forum that we held. One girl told us how her mother had warned her it was unsafe to text and drive, and she had ignored her. But after participating in our assembly, she was determined to make better choices in the future. Thank you.
And that is our presentation.
Do you mind if we ask you a couple questions? You said you made a presentation in front of 450 students, and you had them sign a pact. How many of those participated out of the 450?
Like volunteer?
You mean the survey?
Uh-huh.
The survey, we didn't really require them to, sign that little pledge on the back, but just there was a few students who did it and brought it back to us, of their own volition, and we thought that was pretty cool.
Do you have plans to go to the other high schools?
Through our promotional video that we're going to make, RX Paris is going to distribute the video to high schools and deliver it for us.
If I could add to that, sir, we have the Health Careers Academy. This is a project that we'll continue on with every year. So as these students are all going off to college in the next few months, the coordinator, then the next group that will come up, they will probably do more advocacy on the benefit of this program and getting it out throughout the community, schools and the junior high schools.
This is just great, what you guys are doing. I mean, it's a standard that all of the students should follow. I think it's just great. Do you guys have any?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend really all four of you, and especially a mom that's just recently lost a son, and to be a part of this is inspirational. So I appreciate you being here today and leading these students. And all three of you are amazing in your presentation. To have that memorized, I can't think of it being any more professional or doing a better job than what you've done. And just really appreciate too. I know there's a personal nature to this as well, losing a friend, and so I really appreciate that. I think it's excellent what you're doing, and no doubt this will be something that will grow and spread to other high school campuses and make a difference and save lives. So thank you for coming today.
And if I could just take a moment to echo on those comments as well. I can't say that, or what I can say is that I'm so proud, of Palmdale High School, of you students, of what you do, of what you represent. We're just so proud of you, again, the school, the community, and all that you do. And I know it's not easy to come up here, and especially in light of the family and friends that you lost, to make those presentations and those comments. But the difference that it is going to make within the school and the community is just commendable. So thank you for your time and for your hard work.
I'd like to say the same thing. Thank you. It's always terrific to see young people involved in something that's so worthwhile. Often you hear that young people don't care enough, they don't want to be involved. Clearly what you've done is got engaged in something that you're very interested in, that's close to your heart, and you obviously have a passion for. So thank you to all of you, anyone who participates with you, your supervisors, and of course the sponsors that have helped you put this together. It's a terrific program.
We have some certificates for you. I'm going to ask the superintendent of schools to come down and help.
While they're coming down, I just want to add on behalf of Mayor Paris, he is at trial today, or he would have been here to give you these certificates, but he's very proud of you. When we got involved in sponsoring this program, we had no idea what would come out of it, and you guys did a tremendous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
These are certificates of recognition for the city of Lancaster, and to the Angela.
Before you leave, too, I know this is an incredibly busy time for you with graduations and such. We would like to invite you to a future City Council meeting if you would honor us to give the same presentation, both because it's important that our council hear it, but also so we can put it on the city website so my kids and everyone's kids can see it as well, too. So I'd like to get with you afterwards, give you some future dates that work for you.
And we're available for any time except the week of June 23rd.
Okay.
Because the students, we're going to be traveling to Nashville, Tennessee to compete on the national level, and they will be competing against 48 other states to obtain the national recognition. As you can see, they were the gold medalists, and that's what we're going to be working towards. So this is a rehearsal for them. We appreciate your time. They need to they've gotten much, much better since the state conference in March, and they're going to continue presenting, and this has been a wonderful opportunity. And so anytime other than that, I think we'll be okay.
May 26th is our next council meeting, and if that works, we'll talk afterwards, I'll come and see you right now. We can make that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks again.
We have to take a couple minutes because this is our unit, so we're going to take that all down.
We'll proceed to new business, number 3, the supervisor for the juvenile referee in Antelope Valley, Jack Furry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I appreciate the opportunity to come up and talk to you this morning. I really also appreciate Lieutenant Downton for asking me up here. When I looked at the notes on the back of it, I would like to commend the council. You have me listed as Jack Fury, F-U-R-E-Y, and that spelling hasn't been used since 1822 when my Irish ancestors came over here and they couldn't read the way they wrote it at Ellis Island, and they changed it from an E to an A. So I appreciate the fact that you have gotten it right. I'm the supervising referee for the informal juvenile courts in Los Angeles. There are 12 courts throughout the county. They go from Lancaster to Long Beach, from Pomona to Santa Monica. We have one court in Avalon. It is a Friday afternoon court only. It's staffed by Judge Peter Merich out of San Pedro. I have tried to talk Judge Nash into letting me do that so I can fly over with a helicopter on Friday and have lunch and come back. They don't do a whole lot of business there, but it's a really great assignment. I do have some material that I will give you this morning. What these are essentially two of the sections. Thank you. Two sections that we operate under. The court is a mandated court under Section 660.5 of the Welfare and Institutions Code. That section was written by Judge Mike Nash and Dave Searcy, who was my boss in this job years ago. And the court has been around in various forms for about 45 years. It started out initially as a function of the probation department who handled kids that were pre-delinquent. They didn't fit into the delinquency system per se, and so the police department would cite the kids in, send them to the probation department, and the probation department would deal with them. As the demographics and the populations expanded throughout the county, the court system expanded to meet it. And between 1960 and about 1970, the court was staffed almost exclusively by retired police officers who did traffic and truancy cases, and that's all they did. That progress continued until today, as we have noted for you under Section 256. There are 15 areas of jurisdiction that we handle which are very specific to what we can do. It was interesting to hear the kids this morning talking about drunk drivers. Under subsection 1 of that section, it says that we specifically cannot handle anything in the vehicle code that's a felony and 4 DUI sections. 2 of the sections, 23-136 and 140, are specifically excluded from us. Now, the problem is, if you read down to subsection 15, it says we can handle any infraction. In 2008, the legislature changed 23-136 and 140 in terms of how they classified them. 23-136 is the DUI section for kids under 21. with a blood alcohol level of 0.01 or lower. That used to be a civil penalty only. They changed it to make it an infraction with a $75 base fine. 23-140 used to be a misdemeanor. They changed that to an infraction with a base fine of $75. So in theory, if you read the section under subsection 15, we can handle those two sections. But the city attorneys have told us that because there is expressed language in 256, we can't hear it. So we have a conundrum. It says no, but it says yes. And the problem that we are running into is that law enforcement throughout the county is encountering kids that don't fall into the blood alcohol level high enough to book them for 23-152, which is the DUI section, where they have a blood alcohol level. They have been drinking, but they don't rise to the highest level, so they write them the 136 and 140. They send the tickets to us. We get the tickets, and there's nothing we can do with them. We have to send them back to the citing agency or send them to probation. The problem is that if we send something to the probation department, very, very seldom, if anything, does it ever happen that we know what takes place with regard to the disposition. It is literally like dropping something into a black hole. We just don't know. We never hear anything, and when they do, they put them on involuntary summary probation. They have a 30 to 40-minute meeting with them. The kid is let go, and nothing happens. So we have explored ways to try and get somebody in the legislature to look at this so that they could take 23-136 and 140 out of the exclusion section so that we could handle those cases. But again, that's way above my pay grade, and I'm not in a position to be able to do that. So how we deal with that in the future is something that I cannot answer. I've been asked about it repeatedly, and I just don't know. At a meeting several weeks ago, I was asked by one of the participants, how does the court force kids to go to school for truancy? And the problem is we can't. All of the daytime loitering sections throughout the county are not really truancy sections. They're loitering sections. There are exceptions to them, and what I have tried to tell the various police departments and the roll calls and the agencies that I deal with on a regular basis in this job is if you run into a situation where you think that a minor is supposed to be in school, is not, is out in public, has no parental supervision, write the ticket. The worst thing that can happen is the minor will come to court and the court will deal with it and have to dispose of it, one way or the other. Yes, it's true, or no, it's not. Don't just simply say, gee, I'm going to let it go. And we try to look at all of the data that we have been able to collect through the last 5 years I've been here, and there is a direct correlation, as I'm sure you are all aware, between the number of residential burglaries and the number of citations that are written for kids who are not in school. I mean, it just, tickets go up, residential burglaries go down. And they just, it's almost like a teeter-totter. So we have been trying to get as much enforcement as we can for the various law enforcement agencies. We are the busiest court of the three. The delinquency, dependency, and our court are the three things that operate within the juvenile court system. Last year they did about between 40 and 44,000 delinquency cases in the county. The informal juvenile traffic court did just shy of 170,000 cases last year. Of that number, 11,257 were up here in Lancaster, and 9,254 of those were misdemeanors. So this is a busy court. It is not by far the busiest, but it is busy, and we have a working partnership with law enforcement in all of the jurisdictions, some better than others, unfortunately, but it is something that we try to foster, and at every opportunity we try to work with them as best we can. We're limited to terms of what we can do. We can only impose fines. There are 13 different categories, about 10 of which are dispositional for us. Fines, driver's license suspensions, community service programs, drug, alcohol rehabilitation programs where they are available, Up here, we don't have the community service available, so it's either Saturday schools, if the schools have them, which you and I should be talking about and will. And what happens for the first time, for example, a first-time truancy violation, the base fine under our guidelines is $225. If it is a school where you have Saturday school, we send the kid to the school. If he or she completes it, they come back. We'll reduce the fine for them to $35. The second-time violation, whether they go or not, is discretionary with a bench officer. That fine is $395. And the third time, it's a $985 violation with a driver's license suspension for a year. So it gets really expensive for the kids to do this. Yes, there is recidivism. Yes, we do encounter them. But we have found over the last 4 years, when I've done the studies, that the first time we get a kid, if there's no Saturday school, there's a good chance we're going to get them back. First time we have a Saturday school where we can send the kid, there's a better than 60% chance that the kids will not come back for a second violation. So there's a definite benefit to the minors if the Saturday school programs are available. There's a program available which helps the school, which helps the kids, and helps us deal with some of the problems that we got. I have had the pleasure of sitting up here. I sat here for 5 years, and I will tell you I've sat in every one of the courts in the county over my tenure as a referee, and I have to tell you truthfully, I'd come back here in a heartbeat. I loved it up here. My relationship with a number of the deputies who are now moved on, and sergeants and gone on, was absolutely terrific, and I think that of all the places I worked, this was the one that I liked the best. So if I can answer any questions for you, please feel free to ask me. I don't want to take up a lot of your time because I know you got a lot of things to do, but is there anything I can do for you?
A couple questions.
Sure.
You said the community service not available up here?
No.
Why?
It used to be, but it is not now. No, I can't answer that. I don't know.
How do we get it available?
You'd have to have community service programs or providers that would be willing to do that. We do have some of them in other courts or other jurisdictions. We have had problems with a couple of them. We are now having one of them looked at by the probation department in order to certify that they meet the requirements that the probation department would use before we can go back and start using them again. When I was up here, there was a program. They decided not to continue up here simply because there wasn't enough volume. So they required everybody to go down to Van Nuys, and the people would say, you know, I really don't want to drive an hour down, drop my kid off, drive an hour back, drive an hour back down, drive an hour back, I'll just pay the fine. So that program, as far as they were concerned, was not sufficiently profitable, and they just decided to terminate it.
In your years of expertise, we've heard from different people, and they've told us that there's a revolving door in the Juvenile Justice Commission. How do we fix that?
You mean in the commission or
in the system?
Court? Usually, what happened was I was up here for 5 years. The fellow that I replaced up here, when I replaced him, this was only a 3-day-a-week court because of the budget issue. When I replaced him, they converted it from 3 to a 5-day court. I was here for almost 5 years. I would still be here, except that my boss, Dave Searcy, was a supervising referee, retired, and I got picked by Judge Nash to go downtown and take over. So there was a replacement. He came up here, that was Mr. Toomer. He was up here for, I believe, 4 years, but he lives almost in Pomona. So the drive was absolutely chaotic. There was a vacancy. He asked to be transferred back downtown, and he was. We now have somebody working here who lives essentially in the center part of the San Fernando Valley. We try to keep people in the same courts for long periods of time, but it's subject to a whole lot of things. I wish I could guarantee him up here for the next 10 years, but it's very difficult, particularly now with our budget issue.
Let me ask it a different way. If you had a wish list and you could fix the problem, how would you fix the problem?
Of rotation?
Of the
I would probably go through the list of all 12 of my referees, find the one that I thought best suited to interface with the community and law enforcement. Not so much who's going to do the best job in terms of handling the cases, because that's really a repetitive, methodical process. What goes beyond that is the ability to relate to what's going on in the community as far as how the court impacts that. And that it deals with what are the concerns for the law enforcement community, what are the concerns for the school community. I mean, if there is not that homogeneous relationship, then there's a problem. And given all the things that I could do, what I would want to do is say, you're going to Lancaster, and you're going to be in Lancaster for at least 5 years. And I will have reports back from you about this, this, and this, and I'll be up there on a regular basis to talk to the powers that be and to see what's going on. That's what I would do.
Anyone else?
I had a question about, I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
Just a comment. It has been years since we've spoken before, but I know years ago, and this may be something to take a look at some point in time, we did have, well, the kids that we had up on probation at that point in time, they were able to do their community service in this area at particular schools. Maybe that's something that we can revisit. But I think you hit the nail on the head. It has to be that connectivity between the various agencies to ensure that that takes place within the city as well.
If the court operates in a vacuum, it's not doing the job it's supposed to do. And it is really difficult when we can't get the court directly involved with what's going on. I mean, there are some, for example, in downtown Los Angeles, although you did 11,000 cases last year, downtown Los Angeles did 54,000 cases. And that's between roughly 2 bench officers and me. So it's really difficult to get out and get into the community in some of the locations. And very frankly, some of the locations don't want us. They just, the city councils, and we don't get the kind of support that we'd like to do. But, you know, it's just one of those things. The more we get involved, the better off we are. And having said that, this is probably the easiest place to fix, because I get to come up and talk to you folks, and this has only happened once in one other jurisdiction in my 6 years in this chair, which is surprising to me, although I've made offers. So,
what do you need from us to get more involved?
Have somebody call me when you're going to have your meetings, and I'll be here. And I will do whatever I can to help formulate. I've talked to the captain, and he's going to have some policy discussions with his people. And hopefully he will give me a call. I have volunteered to come up and talk so that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to talk to Dr. Vieira, and I'm not going to let him get away. And so we'll see what we can do to make it better for you folks.
Go ahead. Mr. Fury.
Change 23-136 and 140, please do.
Mr. Fury?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just had a few questions. Could you talk to us a little bit about Saturday School, what it does, who implements it, how is it funded?
I can't tell you how it's funded. That's a little bit out of my ballpark. I can tell you that we understand that some of the schools have it and some of them don't. If the schools have it, then what we will do is I think there's a list over at the court where we simply say to a kid, all right, what school do you go to? All right, you go to school A. It's not on the list. Here's your fine. School B, you are eligible to go to Saturday school. Here's what your fine is. You have an option. You can either pay the fine, or you can go to the Saturday school, come back here within 60 days, show us proof that you have done that, and we will reduce your fine. So the choice as to whether they do that or not is entirely up to the minor. The problem that we have in terms of orders is we can't really compel anybody to do anything because we don't have the ability to hold somebody in contempt. That is a specific exclusion for our court. It's not, if I was sitting in a delinquency court and they didn't do it, it's a whole different ballgame. And I can't incarcerate anybody If I get somebody that needs incarceration and needs to be put in the hall, I have to send them to the delinquency court for dealing. So as far as funding and stuff is concerned, that's way out of my ballpark.
The funding source is really from the state, and what happens is that with those kids being truant and being told to go to Saturday school, we do receive the ADA, the average daily attendance funding for that. So if we can get those kids to come back with the incentives to do so, it's a win-win for the court system and for the school as well.
Just an answer to, if I can, Mr. Chris, in answer to Mr. Chris, if all of your schools had Saturday school sessions, it would be really easy for us to say, look, first time out, you go, period. Second time, you go, period. That way, we're forcing them back to school. There is a financial benefit to the school. We're getting some positive reaction from the kids, and there is a way for them to reduce what they have to deal with in terms of the fine. But, you know, it's kind of a pick and choose, and yeah, we do, no, we don't.
You gave a statistic that if the kids go to Saturday school, then truancy rate drops. Where did that come from?
There's a detective by the name of Kevin Coffey with the LAPD. I can give you his number if you like. He's done a number of presentations on it where they have looked at it, and it's a direct correlation. I mean, it'll jump right up and hit you in the head. That you're out of school, burglary rates are up. You're in school, burglary rates are down. So, you know, the more active the enforcement, the less Part 1 problem you got.
And that leads me to my final question. Our mission is to reduce Part 1 crimes within Lancaster. From your experience working on the bench with the juveniles, what are the 3 things we could work on to do that as it involves the juveniles?
Write them tickets. Write them tickets.
Saturday school.
I'm not being facetious. As I say, I have been doing this for a number of years, and I am absolutely convinced in my heart of hearts, the more enforcement you get in the street from the uniformed cops or deputies, the more you are going to see a reduction in a whole range of things in the Part 1 area. That's just the way it is. And if they don't write them, the kids figure, hey, we got a free pass. And even if they go to court and nothing happens, they still have dragged mom and dad down to court. They've been there. They know that if they get another one, they come back. The bench officer looks at the record. It says, all right, you got one before. It may have been dismissed. I don't know why, but now you got a second one. Now you run the risk of a higher fine, period. And the kids know this. So, you know. The other thing I would do is, you know, if you, as I said, I would be more than happy to move up here if that's what you like, if it helps you guys do your job.
Who is responsible for the community service to implement it within our area?
I don't know. When you say responsible, what do you mean?
Well, who would we go to work on getting the community
right now,
service?
Judge Nash is doing an analysis of, I put together a whole big long list of all the people. I can make some phone calls and get back to you or Don and let you know who they are and whether they would be willing to do it. There used to be a program through the court that they did, where they did it. And I guess for budgetary purposes, that simply went by the wayside about a year or so after I left. But if you like, I'll make some phone calls for you.
Good.
And could I suggest and recommend that probation and then the schools be a part of that as well? Because I think there may be a number of students that could be required to have terms within either their expulsions or the probation to fulfill the community service aspect of that.
And as Dr. Vera says, if the school is involved and the school says, look, we got a school that has to be cleaned up on Saturday. We're going to have people here to clean it up. You know, send the kids over. That's community service. And we would be more than happy to work out something along those lines if we know how to do that.
And while we have you here, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, David, but what about Saturday school? Is that something you've had in the past or something that can be implemented?
We do have Saturday school. I'll have to check to see. I thought we offered it out at all of our sites, but I have a note to myself to do that. And then whether we offer it every Saturday or once, twice, 3 times a month, I'm not sure.
I think, at least as I understand it, Dr. Muir, it is not every Saturday. It's like every other Saturday or 2 Saturdays a month at certain schools. But if you could let me know,
I will.
I'll be more than happy to advise my.
Okay.
What I would suggest too is we're going to reinstitute meetings that we have with parole and probation. You've been attending. We can discuss the whole aspect of community service, school, et cetera. And I think, as David pointed out, it's a multi-jurisdictional issue.
And if probation would like to take the kids we send over for community service, bless their hearts, we'd be happy to do that.
One of the issues, again, is in everything. It's budgetary and it's responsibility for them, because if you have kids out there, you have to have supervision, and if they get hurt doing something.
Well, that's the part of the good part of Saturday school is that the revenue that comes in pays for the supervision of that, at least within the school system.
Just from an implementation and a liability and a revenue standpoint, Saturday school is probably easier and quicker to do.
Yeah.
In particular, if we can put a group of folk together that can offset it so the school district doesn't have to carry the weight, the whole thing. So I think we can work to make it happen.
That would be fine. Be more than happy to help you with that.
Could we use them with the Neighborhood Impact Program? Mark?
We'd have to look at that, because one of the things with that, again, is because they're assigned to you in an official capacity, you have to have someone to supervise them, you have liability issues and stuff. The answer is yes, but if your goal is to give them some repercussion for their action, the Saturday school probably does that quicker and easier and brings a revenue source. We can look at that too.
One of the things we require when they do the community service program is that they secure an insurance policy to indemnify the courts for anything that happens. Some of them are reluctant to do that, and they say, yeah, we do, we have it, and then I say, give me the deck sheet, and we haven't got it yet, so the program goes offline.
So the answer to that question was tickets, 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 and community service and Saturday schools.
School. You bet.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate it.
John, I just wanted to thank you for being here from the standpoint of local law enforcement. I really enjoyed our talk before the meeting started, and I'm certain that as our supervising referee out here, you're gonna create a situation for us where we're going to work very well together and be of great assistance to us in getting our truant problem under control, because it is a major problem out here with our Part 1 crimes, particularly burglaries and robberies. And I'm pleased that you're out here, and I know we're going to work well together. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to bug you till you don't want me out here.
Thank you.
That's a good thing, and thank you for everything.
Give me a call. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we make sure the minutes show that at 10:52, Dr. Brown left for an excused meeting? Now on to new business, prison issues and updates. Jason?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The Commissioner requested that we put prison issue updates on the agenda. Working with Mr. Jeffra at the Lancaster Prison, LA County Prison, that I thought it best that he come, or a representative from the prison system come and update you on the happenings at the prison system. They have been very, very willing and supportive of informing us on a number of different issues regularly through the CAC, as well as direct calls to us. So we've established a very strong relationship with them, and I can guarantee you they are committed to involving the community, notifying the community, and I'm really happy that they're here today to talk to us. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jeffra and his representative, I believe the PIO.
Welcome, Mr. Jeffra.
Thank you. I would like to say that it's always a privilege, but under the circumstances, we realize, too, that everybody's got their back to the wall right now. And with the conditions of the swine flu that are throughout the state, this institution and every institution in the state has barred all non-essential personnel from coming on. To date, there are approximately 18 active cases of the swine flu within the institutions throughout the state. The state of California has a number of swine flu incidents, as well as other states, if you've been keeping up on it. Well into the thousands now. So we're going to be exceptionally cautious, and our medical department is keeping us appraised every single day. We get medical alerts as to, we have no indication as to when we're going to reopen, because every day something changes. So we'll keep you advised. On behalf of the warden, his prime responsibility as far as the CAC is concerned is to keep them informed. And that's exactly what we do. If I'm not on the phone, Lieutenant Allen is on the phone. One of us will be in contact at all times. And we're certainly available for any questions that this commission has, or anybody for that fact. We'd be more than happy to share that information. I know that there's always a concern about what's going to happen as far as the conversion is concerned. The last information that we have, obviously it's been pushed back to June, which I've notified the CAC about. Just to let you know that we do have buses that come into our facility, because we are a reception center. And so SNY inmates are going to be coming to our facility in order to be classified. We have to do that. They're going to be classified somewhere. So they'll be classified at our facility. Our in-house work is that I don't know if everybody knew this or not, but we were not a full reception center at any particular time. We had, of the 1,000 inmates that they would propose to put in C facility, we already have 450 of those inmates on the facility. They have been here. They're SNY inmates. They're sensitive need inmates. They have been here. They have taken up all of our lockdown spaces. We literally have to move them into C yard because we need room now for the disciplines that we have. So those things are currently taking place as we speak. As far as the facility is concerned itself, they're not getting out of there. That isn't going to happen. We understand that this community and certainly this commission is very, very concerned about what is taking place at the facility. And of course, I would normally say, come out and I'll take you on a tour. That's not going to happen just yet. We will keep you informed. And there is this warden is very, very transparent. He absolutely believes in keeping the community informed as to what's happening. Understand, too, that these decisions are made in Sacramento. We are, like any other, like when you get a command from, we're mission specific, and we're going to deal with the mission that we get, the cards that we get dealt will play. That's what we will always do. But by the same token, our commitment to the community is that you're going to be informed every step of the way. They may not be the things that you personally want to hear, but we're not going to lie to you. And we'll lay it out just exactly as we get it so that you are informed as to what in the world we're doing out there and what the expectations from Sacramento are at this point. I'm open to any questions.
Can you talk to us about the honor yard?
Let me introduce myself. I'm Lieutenant George Allen. I'm the administrative assistant to the warden, and I'm also the public information officer. So if anything comes up, it'll either be Mr. Jeffrey or myself will be contacting you. I have a direct line now. It's area code is 661.
Excuse me. Don't do that. Oh. You're on TV.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You don't want to do that.
But I can be reached. The council does have my numbers.
Okay, thank you. Jim, can you talk to us about the honor yard, where it's at, and if it's going through? We did the tour several months ago, and they were making some changes there.
The honor yard I would like to say that it's a work in progress, and it still is. With the things that are happening in Sacramento right now, it's not going to be on the front burner. we still have to deal with medical issues, and as you know, there was also some tuberculosis that was moving around the state as well. We feel that we're still in line to get the tools that are needed to put the honor yard into place. We haven't been officially informed that that's going to be the case, but we still have a tremendous inmate population out there that still conform to the honor yard rules and regulations, and these are strict rules. They comprise our crop program, which is an outreach program for at-risk youth. We have a lot in the works there, but at this particular time, we're not going to be able to move forward until we get these other issues dealt with at the state level. Those are going to be paramount.
Jim, I might miss this, but we had taken the tour out to the honor yard, and we were very impressed by the program you guys had going there. And I know one of the concerns was that they were going to start putting general population inmates into the honor yard. Has that been resolved, or is that an ongoing problem?
They have been putting GP inmates into the honor yard, because where there's a level 4 bed, you have to send a level 4 inmate, and that's just simply the rules and regulation throughout the state. Once we get the go-ahead, you'll see buses backing up in there, and we'll be taking those that do not qualify out of there. Thus far, I think we've identified over 500 that are qualified to stay there, and we will continue to go through that qualification process until we get a final word, or until we are advised you can move forward now. I don't anticipate, to be honest with you, that we're going to be advised that we're not going to be able to move forward. But realistically, until we get an official word, and George, if you have,
I haven't heard anything yet.
We are in direct communication with the warden at all times, and whatever comes down, we get.
Is there any political support this commission or the city can give you to make that happen sooner?
Absolutely.
What is that?
We would, letters of support through our local legislators, letters of support from this city, letters of support from law enforcement. Let me give you some statistics about the honor yard. The honor yard itself reduces work comp claims over 96%. In 4 years' time, there was one reported incident that occurred on a yard. That was from originally when it started, from 2000 to 2004. And that was a very iffy incident at best. Prior to that, we had 2 of our officers that were assaulted, stabbed in the head repeatedly. One officer at that point had to retire, and so forth. Typical level 4 maximum security GP yard. In 4 years' time, when you can reduce work comp claims, when you can reduce injury, the officers are bidding for those positions, and believe me, there are a lot of officers that want to bid into that position out there, because even though you're always going to keep your guard up, you're never going to let your guard down, there are certain perks that go with working in a yard like that. And when you start to program that yard, it's easier to program, because the officers out there are part of that programming. They want to do that stuff. We don't keep that distance. We know what the boundaries are, but we don't keep that distance. And you'd be surprised at what takes place there.
Jim, I think the whole commission is sold on the honor yard, at least from the discussions we've had. I was wondering if it would be possible if you could give us like an email with the bullet points of the positive things that are happening in that yard. Maybe send it to Jason so that the city can put together some letters to our senator and assemblymen, and maybe have, when we meet with them, if we can bring this up as a top priority for our commission. Would that be something you could do for us?
Oh, yeah. We'd be happy to do that.
That'd be great.
Matter of fact, I'll be on the phone as we leave, and I'll make sure that we get that started.
And I did want to follow up. You were talking about the conversion, and the conversion you're talking about is getting the, I think you called them sensitive need inmates, that they're going to be transferring more sensitive need inmates to our facility. Is that what my understanding is?
What the conversion means is that C yard, or Charlie yard, is going to be converted as the legislature looks at it right now. It's going to be converted from a reception center yard to a level 4 maximum security S&Y yard, which is sensitive need inmates.
What is a sensitive need inmate?
Sensitive need inmates are inmates that have specific problems. They may have some medical issues. They may have to be, maybe they're keepaways. Maybe if they go in and say, hey, I'm afraid, you can probably, since he's worked these yards much more than I have.
Okay, and the sensitive need inmate, a lot of them are gang dropouts. They've gave up information concerning the gangs, so they're jeopardy. They're in jeopardy. Other ones we have, and what we're seeing now is they're coming off the bus, and the first thing they're saying is, hey, I've got problems. So we have to afford them that type of protection. One of the big things is as we go through this, is we're finding out some of them that aren't meeting that criteria, we're putting them back on the bus. So what we're trying to do is our sensitive needs, they have certain distinct needs that we have to ensure their type of protection. It's a little bit lower than putting them in like a SHU or a protective housing, but it's still, we have to provide them that. And it's easier to put them all in one yard versus having them scattered out.
When you're talking about the sensitive needs, and are they just gang dropouts?
Some are gang dropouts. Some of them are, they owe drug deal. They have drug problems out there where they owe a group of money. So they're giving up that information. So, yeah, we've got to provide them that, and they can't walk a GP yard.
What else?
Themselves. It runs a gauntlet.
Can you make a list for me? Just go down real quick.
I can make you a list, yes, sir.
Can you just go through it real quick?
Okay, well, we have gang dropouts.
I want to know if sexual predators are in that list.
They can be.
Okay, and
See,
if
when we
there's
look at them, we don't look at them in that category. We look at them as, okay, he has a distinct need, and that's how we address it.
I know, but as a community, we look at them differently.
Okay.
Okay, so out of that yard, how many of these are sexual predators?
I couldn't give you that answer because we don't know. We won't know until after, well, if the yard is converted over completely.
Will you know?
We would eventually know, yes.
And will you let us know at that time?
Mr. Jeffra, thank you for your service in our community for a long time and here in the city of Lancaster. And we've met many times. And I'm curious what your opinion is of the impact on the city of Lancaster with this conversion of the C yard from a reception center to a level 4 area. Do you see there being much impact on our community because of that? Families moving to the area? What in your experience at the prison and also in the city of Lancaster, do you have any observation? How does that affect crime in Lancaster?
Well, I think the first impact is psychological. I think that when folks hear that this is going to happen, that it becomes a psychological thing, and folks don't like it. And we understand that. Knowing law enforcement, there is a fear that there'll be more people that will move up into the jurisdiction and that they will be criminals. And let's face it, some folks that are in prison breed criminals. That happens, and we know that for a fact. How is it going to impact? It would be almost impossible for me to say until we wind up deciding exactly what we have out there. Those people that come in into a reception center to be classified, if they are classified within a certain, in other words, if they come out of a zip code that is North San Fernando or Southern Kern or Antelope Valley, the chances are that those people will not be moving at all. There are ways to deal with that type of classification. I don't know that that's been addressed. It's just something that certainly we have talked about in the classification of inmates if they are going to be a level 4 general population yard. It scares folks. And, you know, let's face it, these guys are out there and they've done things that are atrocious. If you've never been out and taken a look at some of this stuff, it's a whole new ballgame. So I wouldn't be able to give you a real definitive answer. You asked for my personal opinion. I think that until we get past the psychological part of this thing, I don't know that we're going to be able to give you some definitive stuff. And I think it would be wrong of me to do that. We want to look at this as far as the community is concerned and make it as safe as we possibly can. I would like to see that done through the zip code type of classification. So they're not going to move. It wouldn't be to their benefit to move up here if they're already living in North San Fernando Valley, or what you're going to find and be a very small community in Santa Clarita or Antelope Valley or Southern Current. They're not going to move up. That's just an alternative.
Commissioner Johnson, if I may, I might add something to that. I think that, you know, I know Jim's a little reluctant to share his opinion, what I appreciate, and I think he's given good information. What we find anecdotally and in talking to the Sheriff's Department and such is that long-term inmates, families do move up here. At a minimum, they visit. And as Mr. Jeffress said, some of their associates and family members aren't, quite honestly, good people. They're people that prey on other people. One of the things, and this is no reflection on these two folks here who are on our side and help, is that the state doesn't want to know the impact, so they don't have the information or studies on the impact. So they can rightly say, well, we don't believe that these people will move up here because they don't want to study it. So what we've asked them to do, and we've made a formal request, and we're getting it to them now, is we want you to do a study. This particular prison, we want the information on those people that visit, their houses, their locations. We can cross-reference it then against criminal activity in this area, and we can get the answer. We want them to do it and pay for it, which they've been somewhat reluctant to do. So, again, no reflection on these gentlemen, but there is absolutely an impact to people moving up here and their families and associates, and it's a detriment to this community. That's why we fought it so hard. Reception center, you would at least have it so folks don't move up here because those prisoners are going to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's my concern, and I'm just wondering how we, as a commission, could, again, provide some kind of political voice or pressure. I know that the mayor has spoken pretty strongly about this issue, and that's why I asked that question. Thank you for your follow-up.
And I can assure you the mayor is going to continue speaking out about this, and we've had a great supporter in Senator George Runner. George and Sharon were instrumental in getting the reception center up here, and will continue to fight to keep it a reception center.
Dennis, you have anything?
Yes, Jim, I just had one question. I know I've known you for a long time. I know your involvement in the community, on city council and law enforcement before, in your position now. When they asked, one of the other commissioners asked, what would the impact be? And you said, well, initially psychological anyway, and then from there we'd see what really would happen. I guess another way I would ask is, based on your experience with the city council and with law enforcement and what you do today, can you think of any positive aspect that comes to this community by the special needs inmates being relocated here in that facility changing? Okay. And you can't imagine any reduction in Part 1 crimes that would result from that move here?
No, I cannot.
Okay, that's all. Thanks, Jim.
We'd like to thank you for coming out, updating us on everything, and appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we just want to add, we are partners with you, and we do appreciate all the help you give us, so thank you.
I would also add that from a staff perspective, it's been a great experience working with the prison system. They are very communicative, and I know that it is one of their highest priorities is to communicate with the community, so I'd like to thank them as well.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the commission reports. The report on the CHP ride-along, the CalGRIP by Vice Chairman Christ. I went on the ride along, and they said it was a slow night. They had weather. That's why I asked those questions earlier if weather had anything to do with it. On that night, they had a hit and run, a drive-by shooting, another shooting at another location. We did some patrol checks. We did gang checks. And if anyone has any questions about whether or not the sheriff department's doing their jobs, we pulled over this one individual that was in gang attire, and he just walked over to the fence, and he was frisked. They talked to him. They did a survey on him, and it was the third time that evening that he was pulled over. So it was quite amazing to me that you guys are doing your job, and we really appreciate it. And the CHP and the sheriff ride along together, and it's a program called CalGrips. There's another instance that happened that night with a shooting, and I have to commend the sheriff's department and the CHP for what they did. There was a white Datsun B210 that fired some shots. The CHP responded, the sheriff's department responded. About 3 hours later, they pulled over a black Datsun B210, and the deputy walked up to it and smelled it was fresh paint. What they had done is they went through and they spray painted the entire vehicle with cans of paint, spray paint, and they found the people, and they did a great job, and the response was just great. And I would suggest that every commissioner goes along and take a look at what they do. It's a real eye-opener. And I'd like to personally thank the sheriffs for what they do. Thanks again.
Thanks, Marv. Just a quick comment. We appreciate the thanks, but we also are very aware that our community and our city here has been so supportive. It's such a wonderful place to work. Those guys over there at that station feel that. And I'll tell you what, I've worked at several different patrol stations before this, and in fact several other units, investigative units. And I can tell you, I don't think I've ever seen morale at this kind of level almost across the board with our special teams all the way down to our young patrol guys. They are doing a heck of a job. They have just tremendous work ethics, and I think they feel that support, and that contributes to it. We've got, we've been given lots of resources over the last several years, and I think that combining all that, the community, of course, our hardworking deputies out there, and the city, and the support from the city council, it's been wonderful, and I couldn't be prouder of them. They really are doing a great job out there.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the Neighborhood Impact Program. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, just in the interest of time, I'll be brief, but I wanted to update you on several items with Neighborhood Impact. First, we have officially established the first Paiute Community House, a joint venture with Neighborhood Impact and the City of Lancaster, and so that is up and running, and we have occupied that. Also had an opportunity yesterday out at the program to just meet with Gary Burgess, who's one of the local neighbors. I think everybody at the city probably knows Gary well. He's proud of that, and just a neat man who has been, one of those guys that has taken a stand in his community and made a difference. And I just wanted to report to you his observation about the neighborhood over the last couple of years. He's a guy that's not afraid to speak his mind, but he just said it's been totally transformed, that he feels completely different about living in that neighborhood, and I think that's a combined effort. I don't think that's any one person or organization. I think it's the Sheriff's Department. I think it's the City of Lancaster and code enforcement. I do think it's the efforts of a lot of volunteers painting 97 houses in the neighborhood and working with kids, and it's a school, Mrs. Lee over at Paiute, who's been there for decades and just doing a great job as a principal. But I do think it's evidence that neighborhoods can be changed. And to have Gary Burgess say that so strongly, he wouldn't say that unless he meant it. So I wanted to give that update. And the other thing I wanted to do is to just to give you a really practical example of how this works when citizens get involved in a community. We have been contacted by the city of Lancaster last week through somebody in code enforcement, and they just let us know there's 2 ladies in the Paiute neighborhood who are senior citizens and who have some violations, and they need some help getting those fixed. And it's such an easy thing for us to connect volunteers to that and get those things done for them. And so I think there's a healthy, sort of balance there. They asked those ladies permission, could they share that? And so we've made contact with those ladies, and we'll be getting those repairs done to their homes. And I just think that's a healthy cycle where things actually get done and get accomplished through volunteers and then working with the city. So those are just a few of the things. And I will also tell you things are going well with Neighborhood Impact moving into the Trend Track, which is at Ellen 40th Street West. There's already been several activities. There's been a house that's been identified that will be, our plan is for that to be the next community house, would be a Trend community house for this to continue to function in other neighborhoods.
Thank you. I just want to say on the Neighborhood Impact Program, there's a lot of buzz in the community that you guys are doing such a great job, what it's about, how the different churches are taking hold of different areas. I just think you're doing a great job with that. Thank you. We'll move on to...
Yeah, Chris, I was just wondering, can you give us an update on the progress of involvement by other churches and other neighborhoods, or what's happening in that area?
Yeah, there are, in fact, we just had a meeting this last week where there probably were 20 different churches that were represented, had somebody come speak and share and just kind of presented the program again. What we're doing is kind of taking a neighborhood at a time. There are about... there's probably about 7 to 8 churches that are involved. Several of the larger churches are heavily involved. Central Christian probably being, one of those kind of leading the way, Grace Chapel. And then there's a couple of other churches that have committed, but I'm reluctant to use their name here just because I don't know if they've publicly sort of rolled that out to their churches yet. So there is another large church in the valley that has agreed to sort of help spearhead a neighborhood impact outreach into another specific neighborhood that the city's identified. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll be able to identify that third neighborhood. And so we're kind of going at it a neighborhood at a time. There are smaller churches that have linked up, for example, with our church and with Central. There's another church that's near Central Christian that has agreed to be in the Trend Track with them. They're going to offer a soccer program in the summer for young people. So sort of our idea is that maybe some of the larger churches with the administrative ability to sort of lead in a neighborhood would do that, and then smaller churches would join them and just bring different components, to the different areas.
And is this program being shared with Palmdale? I mean, obviously they can see what's happening and going on. Are any of the churches in Palmdale actively getting involved? Do we know?
I was in a meeting with Jim down there in Palmdale. I don't know that. I wouldn't say this specific program, but I think Palmdale is aware of it. We certainly met with Jim Ledford just over a year ago and told him about what we were doing. I think, ultimately, honestly, at this point, it's sort of the Lancaster area where this is most active, and we'll just kind of see what happens. I think all along, though, Rob, I thought the best thing for us to do is just to be out doing it, try to set up a model, and if it's effective, people will want to duplicate that. And so we're just going to keep, we still feel like there's a lot that's been done, but we still feel like this is in an infant stage. We really do. This is still just beginning. Again, we just, this last month, established our first sort of official house with the city of Lancaster. So there's a lot that we're learning, and so we're just kind of doing that. We have expanded a lot of the programs. For example, the art program's been very popular. We just have an art class, and one afternoon a week with young people coming to that, and so those kinds of things. And we were talking about some ideas of just adding in some other sort of athletically oriented programs. So that's kind of we're still in that stage of developing this. So I'm certainly not at a place where I feel like I should go try to export this, anywhere.
Understand. Chris, thank you very much. We sure appreciate it.
I just would like to make one thing on behalf of staff, too. We're very proud of this program because, at least personally, we feel that this is the appropriate role for government. Government can't do what Chris does. It's buy-in, it's getting people, it's people trusting and stuff. What we've done is play the role of facilitator with the houses and support. But the work on the street day in and day out is being done by the nonprofits and the churches, and that's the appropriate role, and that's the best model in our opinion.
An update on the Buy Local and Stay Safe campaign. Me and Jason will give a brief overview of that. I'll go first, if that's okay. The car dealers are happy. There was a great month in March. There's a huge difference in their sales. It's a program to educate people. They say that they're being given an opportunity now before they go over the hill and buy, which is great. I think if the public pressure that we're putting on people to buy local, to educate them that if they buy local, it helps us maintain the level of service that we need. It's good. They're happy. I think everybody's happy on what we're doing.
Yeah, I'd also like to touch on our Shop and Dine and Shop and Drive program as well. They're working hand in hand. It's the local stimulus package as well as the regional push that Mr. Chris was talking about. But we have an unbelievable success with regard to the Shop and Dine program. The program has ended with expenditure of around $100,000 out in the communities being spent locally at local businesses, as well as a Shop and Drive program, which is still in operation and has budget left. But we've heard responses from the auto dealerships that these are some of the best months they've had in a couple of years. So it is stimulating the purchase process. It is getting the revenues out there and the people spending a little bit of money. And I think it's, there may be a question of why is this important to the Criminal Justice Commission. I think it's important not to lose sight of the fact that a significant portion of our general fund budget goes to law enforcement. And as much as the economic stimulus package is important on a community-wide basis, the work that Mr. Chris is doing is that those monies that are spent locally are used to put officers on the street, put deputies in their cars, and a significant portion of that sales tax revenue that we receive goes to that. So in the big picture of the successes we've had in the program, it's important to remember that, shopping local has a big impact in the services that we provide. And I think that's why it's important to the commission and the community specifically. So unbelievable amount of success.
We'll move on now to public business from the floor. Did she leave? Okay.
Regarding public business from the floor, we request any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or by mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice that there are 3 lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. Following this procedure will allow for a smooth and timely process for the commission meeting, and we appreciate your cooperation. State law prohibits the Criminal Justice Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Thank you.
Nicole Parsons.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. I was, everyone else got when I came on down because everyone else was getting a long time to speak, so I was like, okay, I'll go on down. And, Mr. Johnson, I was there. We were there at the neighborhood house last weekend when he was there, just opening up at the house. And so I was, I was thinking about the same thing. And I was talking to the board and promoting investing and reinvesting in America and you know, people around you and everything, like the president. And well, not, yeah. And so I thought, well, what could I do myself? And so there's, you know, a girl, a younger girl, and she's like, can I make a couple bucks? You know, she's like 20 something. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And yeah, I pay her like $3.75. I'm like, I don't have any money, but you know, $3.75. Yeah, I'm like, okay, help me, you know, make a garden, whatever. And so that, and so that came up. That was a program, and because I was like, well, you wouldn't let anyone work around your house that you don't know, but people in the neighborhood that you remember how the guy, you were like, I heard good stuff about you, you know, and the people around the neighborhood, you feel more to trust them, and there's something in the federal stimulus like that program, and I call it neighborhood extensions, and but you'd have to report back on the findings because you'd give people economic benefit and real life experiences, and that would be good. So I had a couple of questions. Well, you know, this was number one. You guys had asked what program and then the judge, he had said there was a county program, and in here it's 2008 Los Angeles Superior Court annual report, and there's all these children programs in here, and Mr. Antonovich, someone said a couple days ago or something that Mr. Antonovich is like the most purest guy, and he really is, and I think it's really sad because our court doesn't have any of these programs. You can pick it up in the court. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. What? No, in the court, please can I have, in the court, recorder's office or just any of the professional offices at the court, and you can see these programs. I could give this to you. And so I had a couple questions. And then I just wanted to see if maybe you guys could read off one or that list, because it would just help me to touch on what I was.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you. We have a time limit that we have to go by. Appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Nicole,
we're going to move on to.
Thank you for coming, and if you want to have further discussion, feel free to stop by the Neighborhood Impact House, and you can share your ideas there.
Okay, but can I just say one thing?
No, Nicole, we're going to move on. We have commissioner comments to go through. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
David, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I'm going to reference back to our presentation from those Palmdale High School students, which was just outstanding with the Students Against Destructive Decisions, but it made me think as well is that I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission that each year the high school district in collaboration with local law enforcement has our safe and sober graduation. So with our schools finishing up here the last week of May, which is in the next 2.5 weeks, we will be having that again, and as soon as we settle on a date, I want to make sure we get that to you, invite you to come to that as well. So just a heads up there.
Thank you. Chris? Dennis?
I guess the only comment I would have, our last meeting, as soon as we adjourned here and left, we went to the fairgrounds. I believe that was after the last one. And I think at the last meeting we had the Ms. Jones who spoke from juvenile probation. And I just want to make a comment, I guess. I'm always surprised when we have some of these speakers, and I don't want to sound like I don't appreciate their time, because I do. I know they're all busy and they've got departments to run. But I'm surprised sometimes, especially like when Ms. Jones was here, we ask about what the caseload is, how many juveniles and how many each officer has to handle, that it's not a finite number. And it's not like, we're asking questions about the number of grains of sand on the beach that's difficult to determine. And I know that those cases change probably on a daily basis when somebody's off probation and more people are put on. But I couldn't imagine if we had Dr. Vera come to speak to us and he knew he was going to be here to speak and he knew we were going to ask about enrollment in the high schools, that he wouldn't know that as of last week or last month, a definitive number, how many. And I was reminded of that again today when our speaker was here. He did know exactly how many cases. I didn't hear a broad margin of 500 to 2,000, and that was something that I've heard from some of the other speakers. And again, I appreciate their time, and it's been a wealth of information they've brought. But I am surprised when we talk about juveniles, especially that are in trouble, that we don't know or they can't deliver to us exactly what the number was last week or last month. Especially given that most of the information I'm hearing here with the Commission is that the juveniles are a large part of these Part 1 issues when it comes to burglary. And if that's the case, then, and especially since, in theory, that's the future of this community and the country, of the younger people, I would really like to have real data when they come in here, real numbers on exactly how many it is. And that way if they say, we're overworked, we only have 38 caseworkers, and how many people do they see each? Well, between 100 and 200. That's a pretty big number. Or even if it's only a 20 variable. It should really be a little more definitive, for me anyway, because that starts to give us an idea how much time they can really spend with each person each month. It was just an observation. I don't know if anybody else had noticed that, but the speaker today had his figures, exactly what it was, and so it kind of was a treat. That's all.
Thank you. I have two things. I went to a Neighborhood Watch captain meeting. Shelley was at that meeting. I'd like to commend you and your group of people that put it on. But they talked about a group that they called Knockers. Can you go through that real quick?
Yeah, we refer to the knockers when we're discussing burglary prevention, and we've gone over this several times in community presentations, our neighborhood watch meetings, and including our block captain meetings. Basically, it fits the MO for several of our burglaries over the last few years, and basically it's anybody that's coming to your door. The way I tell everyone, you're by no means obligated to open your door to a stranger. Obviously, it's a personal choice. And I also emphasize that not every person that comes to your door is a bad person. However, again, going back to the knockers, it was very common in a lot of the burglaries. They're usually in groups of 2 or 3. Often they are juveniles. And one will go and knock on the door. If the person opens the door, they might ask if Timmy's home. Well, obviously there's no Timmy there. It's just a way to get, a view into the home. And if nobody opens the door, and they don't hear anything, then one or two will be the lookout outside the home while the other 1 or 2 go in the backyard and proceed to break in. So again, we tell everyone you're not obligated to open your door, but acknowledge the knock if you are home. And it's interesting when people ask me, well, what am I supposed to say? And I tell them, again, that's a personal choice. It's up to them what they choose to say. But we've also had cases where these knockers they don't necessarily go away when someone does acknowledge the knock the first time. So we encourage them to also say, I'm calling the sheriff's station now if you do not leave, because we've had people that are actually jiggling the front doorknobs.
Thank you. Another thing that they talked about, and this is for David, they talked about, they said they're doing, the people will knock, and they said that they're doing high school fundraisers. Okay, so a lot of people are doing that. Is there any way that you could put out a press release that the school districts don't do that at 9 o'clock at night?
We could do that through our NTI system, but I'd also suggest that there's so many clubs and organizations, but each student within our high school district has an ID that they wear around, so you can ask for identification, and they should be able to demonstrate with a picture what school they do attend as well.
If you put that out on a press release and told the general public and the Valley Press could release it, Time Warner could pick it up, it would help everybody and help eliminate the knockers.
And we do emphasize that too. We encourage everyone to ask for identification because, as Commissioner Vieira said, if they're legitimate, then they will have their proper identification.
The second thing is, in about 7 minutes, we're doing a memorial lunch at the sheriff's station So you're all invited if you'd like to attend. It's a chicken or a tri-tip dinner in memorial for all the fallen heroes at the Sheriff's Station. So if you'd like to attend. Anything else? Do you have anything?
Yeah, one question for you. For the next meeting, what type of presentation would you like, or what questions do you have that we can answer?
In regards to the...
For the presentation for somebody to bring in, I think we're working on bringing in Chris Estes, the juvenile court judge.
That would be great. I would also like a little bigger presentation on the ComStat so we could go through that, take a look at it, and see how we can use it.
What I would suggest on that, too, and we can certainly accommodate that, is between now and then, if you come into City Hall, we can go through, and you have access at City Hall, too, where we can set it up and you can look at all the maps, do any kind of thing you want.
Okay, great. You know what I would like, personally? I would like to get everybody here at one time. You know, this is like building a house. You know, the concrete guys are blaming it on the framers are blaming it on the drywallers, and everyone's pointing their fingers. If we could get them here all at one time so we could actually find out what's going on, because they're all pointing their fingers in different directions. We could get a little bit more and ask them direct questions. That would be great if we could just do a review.
Excuse me, is this an executive or is this for citizens? Okay, because I need help.
Nicole, I need you to sit down.
But if you guys are
Nicole, I need you to sit down, please. Thank you.
I need help.
Okay, this gentleman will help you. Okay, at this time I'd like to adjourn the meeting. The next meeting will be June 10th, 2009 at 10 o'clock. Thank you.